We are live.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, or good night, depending on where you are. We have quite a global presence here at this panel today. I'm happy to welcome you all to this exciting discussions on what's going to happen to the moot courts competition after the massive improvements in the AI technology. And this is not a hypothetical discussion. This is something that has been around for a while now, and we have an opportunity to reflect on that based on a specific experiment that the organizers of the Jessup Moot Court competition managed to pull off this year. And I think the results of this are very exciting to me and also instructive to the future participants, judges, coaches, and administrators of any moot court competition. I hope that you can hear me well. If something goes wrong, if you can hear me, let us know somehow in the chat or some in other way. So in the panel today, we are honored at the Jessup Ukraine director of the International Law Students Association, the organization that administers the Jessup Moot Court competition. Madam Ganna Yutkivska, a former judge of the European Court of Human Rights and a vice chair of the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, who judged the 2024 final round of the Jessup Moot Court competition. She will be joining us a bit later. Then the authors of an article, a research paper on the use of AI in the moot court competition, Damien Charlatan, a senior researcher at Hague Paris, and Dieticides, who manages to combine the competence necessary to apply AI to the legal research, and his co-author, Niccolò Ridi, a lecturer in public international law at the King's College London. Then we will have Maria Stolbova, who is a former national administrator for Jessup in Ukraine and also a coach of the 2025 Jessup International Runner-Up team from Ukraine. And a member of this team, Vlad Mikhalchenko, who will share their experiences and as a coach and a participant, and hopefully share some advice for the future participants. So this is the panel that we have today, and I'm happy to give the floor to the authors of the article, of the paper, and of the experiment that was done live on me as a judge and on the participants in an indirect way of this year's Jessup Moot Court competition. I'm sure you're excited to hear about the whole idea, how it came to the existence and the outcome of this research and experiment. So, Damien, would you like to?
Yes, it was a pleasure. Thanks a lot for the introduction. And as you mentioned, I will be presenting, introducing, and exploring our study together with Nicolo, and I trust that he will intervene to correct me every time I get something wrong, or maybe not every time, because then he will speak instead of me. But that's fine. We can. So I guess the best way to start introducing it is to just reflect on the fact that for the past now 2 years and a half, a bit more since the introduction of ChatGPT by OpenAI, we've been living in a kind of a new world in terms of machines doing much more than we were used to do. I mean, it's not a very clean break. We used to be able to do things, and in particular, Nicola and I were already playing with large language models even before it was cool. So we're quite excited to see that they became much better at doing a lot of things, and in particular in the legal domain. So I think the roots of the studies of both Nicola and I are international lawyers, moot enthusiasts, mentoring students. I've been coaching Jessup Moot team for 8 years before becoming a national administrator here. So always been there. On top of this, we are involved in AI and tech, and in a way that is not low of tech or low of AI, because I mean, both of us, I think I can talk from Nicola, will find that boring, but more like who can law be a source or an activity in which you can deploy tech and AI as a tool. And so that's why, for instance, I teach coding for lawyers. Nicola does the same, and we teach in particular now about what large language model generative AI can do. But in this context, we thought, why not merge this kind of two passions, which is mooting and legal documentation in general, and see what these kind of models can do in this respect. And that's how we came with the idea of going to Michael Peel, who we know is approachable and responds very quickly to emails, and mooting. I mean, we're already in contact for other studies, but we told him, hey, can we try to do that for this year? And we got the green light and we started to do it. So the study, as we described in the paper, is very simple. We used two, at the time, leading language models, so that was Gemini 2.0 and GPT-4. We use them to write and draft memorials as you would submit it in a Jessup environment. And we thought, I mean, to start with, I think it's important to stress that Moot competitions are an incredible data set and data field for legal data scientists like us. Because compared with real life, where it's always hard to deal with legal data because each case is different. And even if you get a lot of judgment on the same legal norm, for instance, you will always have some kind of difference, etc. But here you've got thousands of participants developing legal arguments on the same case and then being graded by other participants. So it's in that way you've got a measure of what's good, what's not good, etc., etc. So incredible playground for data scientists like us. And so our idea and what we ended up doing is let's create a memorial with generative AI like a normal memorial, and then submit it and then see if they can manage as well as a normal just a participant. In particular, we were very careful to work from the point of view and the stance of a naive student group, as in not a lot of research, just straight to the thing. I mean, there are some variations between the memorials and the kind of way we did it, but it was not a sophisticated affair. And I think if we were to do it against next year or in another mood, we would try to develop a more sophisticated pipeline, and we probably could get much better result. But the approach was not sophisticated. We had these models ingested as context, the compromise, and then a few bits of legal knowledge, including the basic materials, because every student has access to the basic materials. And then for some not memorials, we gave also some part of the textbooks on relevant areas. Then we had to divide the issues issue by issue because it was much easier to generate the text that way. At the time, I think now with new models, we could actually probably get a full memorial from one go. And we formatted it minimally. I mean, there's a bit of formatting that it has because we made sure that it goes into a proper docx, and that's fine. But no, the paragraph length, the way the paragraph cuts, the lack of typos, etc. It's already from the model itself. And yes, we patted for grading by judges. What did we find? We find a lot of variance in the grades, but in general, they scored average. So that's already interesting to see that going very naively, you can get an average grade. Then if you look closer at the things, some memorials graded got a very low score, mostly because they were full of hallucinations, because we didn't check for that. I mean, we barely checked for this. When we generated something, most of the time we copied and pasted it, and that was the end of it. Because again, naive students who just want to use AI and are not getting much further, attitude to the thing, which would thought that'd be more interesting for, especially for this kind of discussion. What do you do if no a student can just take 3 hours to not even 3 hours to create a memorial and do this kind of thing? So some of them were full of hallucination, but others were actually very good and got very good grades because there were no hallucinations. Because and um, that's something that I think is particularly interesting. Our experiment falls into a lot of current studies, and current, I mean, in the past few months, few weeks, that kind of demonstrate all the kind of things that we found in this experiment. The fact that we can have very good results, average results, that there is a lot of variance, but also the fact that in a lot of respect, people prefer AI generated text for a lot of good reasons. AI generated text is bereft of idiosyncrasies. There is not the typos. There's not all the kind of things that makes you think, oh, I don't understand this kind of thing. It's much more straightforward, and so people prefer it. And I think we saw this phenomenon at play now in our course. Um, we saw obviously the hallucinations, which is an entirely different problem and also very important for the future of legal tech. So really, that's what actually we are quite happy about the study at the end of the day. It's because really that we've got this all these kind of results that falls into what the zeitgeist is in terms of large language models into the legal field at the moment, and so we're quite happy about it. Um, so that's about the presentation of the thing. There's a bit more, obviously, because we also conducted surveys of the students, of the judges to see. I mean, another thing that confirmed other studies is that judges could not detect AI. Even judges that were grading our memorials could not detect AI. And they said, we're sure there was no AI generated memorial. They were like, oh, maybe you want to double check because we know for a fact you got one of ours. We also see that some of the students who confessed using AI for generating memorials in general got lower grades. So I think our approach, Nicola and I, we wanted to be the naive students, but I think we're a bit better than the naive students. So there's still a bit of discrepancy here. And yes, at the end of the day, what we found and what the teachings of the paper is that you can, with very little effort, get an average memorial, something that will fare good enough in the thing. You may not get to you have no certainty to get absolute good things, but at least you've got this kind of leveler that really probably changes a lot of things for when you're organizing the moot. That's all for me. I don't know if Nicola want to add anything.
Only if I have some time to do so. Serhi, you will tell me if I'm going beyond my allocated time. No, I think Damian's summary really captures the essence of what we have done. There are a couple of points which I would probably add in terms of Damian is absolutely right. I mean, we there is something that I really want to stress, which is we did not essentially do any sort of editing to what had been generated by the models. So this is something that we tried to stick to as much as possible. Essentially, any sort of editing that we have done to the text that was generated by the models was also automated in a way that was perhaps a little bit more boring, but also which did not use AI, but still was just an automated process, essentially to change certain types of straight quotes into curly quotes and so on. But beyond that, we didn't do any sort of editing. So what was generated was what we submitted without even reading it twice. And I think this is quite striking when you think about it, because it kind of shows that not only a naive student, but also a naive student who didn't really want to do any sort of work, let alone be helped in doing so, could potentially have done so. The other point which I probably would add, and this ties in with what Damien has said about the preference of people for reading AI-generated text, is that we actually checked with some very simple statistics whether or not there was some sort of anchoring to the features, so to speak, which people find preferable in AI-generated text. So what we did was we tried to essentially determine whether or not there was any sort of correlation between scores given for stylistic features, so whether or not a particular memorial was well written, and the scores that were assigned for thoroughness and knowledge of the law and understanding and application of the law and anything in between. And what we did find was that there was quite a significant correlation between what people found good as a stylistic feature and what people found good as knowledge on the law and so on. So what this tells us essentially is that if we manage to do nicely by the formulaic standards of the competition, chances are the judges will also be persuaded that we actually know what we're talking about, even if it turns out that we don't really, or that we don't know if we know, because again, the language model might have said something relevant and important, but we did not reread the memorial, so we don't know. So this is something that I think is quite striking, because it really shows from the perspective of again how you argue in international law and how you provide and make a very solid and compelling argument, that there are lots of things that matter beyond the argumentative structures that we are aware of in international law and that we are taught to deploy in international law.
Thank you, Nicola. I can confirm to you as a judge that, at least to me, this has always been a rule of thumb. So if the memorial looks nice, it's usually written by a team that put a lot of effort into that, and you tend to trust more the arguments. Now, of course, with your splendid studies, I guess the judges will have to be more careful in looking and seeing whether this correlation between the style and substance holds. I have a couple of follow-up questions to you. You've said that, with a little effort, you can create that. Can you actually sort of quantify in terms of the hours? How much time did you spend on creating this model? Is it really a little effort, or is it a lot of effort? And also, as a follow-up, were you thinking about marketing this model to future Moot course participants, because you fed them probably some nice textbooks on international law, so it's already quite capable and can be improved?
No, so I'll start with the last question, which is, and to repeat what I said in terms of going naively, is that we did not the term is fine-tune or prepare or train any kind of dedicated model for this. We went with the normal off-the-shelf offering from OpenAI and Google, and didn't even pay for this, I guess. So really, there's nothing here that we could use, even though Nicola and I are both involved in developing legal tech tools for these and other kind of things, but no point with going to Mooties, who we think should probably keep to the old ways of doing the research. But so for the first part, in terms of how long did we take? Well, different things. Coming up with the way to do it and the way to do it properly at scale, and especially building the prompt that would give us what we wanted in terms of output, took us maybe 5 or 6 hours. And we are both, as I've mentioned, experts in this field, working in this field for a few years. So that took us that time. And then after this, generating each memorial, making sure that we copied and pasted it to a proper docx with everything in between, took us maybe something between half an hour and 1 hour per memorial. So we did 12 of them. And so in general, we did the entire thing over the space of a weekend, if I remember correctly.
Oh, wow. That's a really minimal effort. It seems like previously the teams might include a researcher. Now it seems that the Moot core teams will include the programmer or someone who is AI qualified.
Well,
this is going to be a separate role. I know that you have to leave early, Damien. Before you do, I wanted to ask you.
I'll come back after I leave.
Okay, so what you found, with this exercise, in your different role as the French national administrator, does it give you any concerns? Does it raise any concerns with you as an administrator of a competition, or you are completely fine with what you found?
Well, in the national rounds, we mostly focus on the oral rounds, and so it's a bit different, even though I guess we will see maybe some role for Gen AI going forward in this kind of thing. I can imagine someone with an audio thing or something. So, but let's put that aside. Um, I mean, my concern is all the same as any organizer or anyone involved in this thing, is that it's not necessarily bad, the use of AI. It's bad if, as a result, you come not prepared at all, or you don't know anything, or you didn't learn anything, or you did not get anything from the Jessup. So, so that would be my concerns. But one of the, coming back to the previous question, is that I was also teaching some students this semester who were participating in the Jessup. When I told them that I did a memorial in half an hour, that it took 5 months to prepare, they were kind of taken aback. But also, I a bit skeptical, and then we discussed a bit about all the limits of what we're doing, etc., etc., etc. And so I think, so as always, the good students will realize that there is one way to go to it, and that's what the one way to do it is to be thorough, to do the research, and to really participate in the thing. Some not as good students might think they can take shortcuts, but they would have been bad students anyway. So at the end of the day, I'm not sure. I mean, it's a balance. It's not necessarily easy to go about it, but I wouldn't say. Let's say I'm not catastrophizing. I think we should be okay, but depends on also on what do we tell the student in terms of who they should participate and what they should take from the competition.
Thank you. Michael, you are administering the biggest and the oldest and arguably most prestigious moot court competition. So, and you were the enthusiast of this study and made this experiment possible. And probably looking forward, we would like to hear your ideas on how is this application of LLMs, the large language models, changes how we do the mooting. How is there any ethical problems that you see with the use of AI in the moot court competitions, and how you address all of that as the administrator of Jessup?
Thank you, Sergey. I'd like to start first by thanking our friends at Jessup Ukraine for hosting this panel as part of the 10th Jessup Summer School. The Ukrainian Friends of Jessup have always been pioneers in the Jessup competition, Jessup training and education, and this is just the latest example. I'd also like to thank Nicolo and Damian for their thought-provoking study and for the article, the first of many, I'm sure. It's given us all a lot to talk and think about all summer. So, most important and the most frequently asked question, I want to start by clarifying the Jessup competition's rule regarding the use of generative AI. Using AI in the Jessup competition is perfectly legal. The Jessup competition permits teams to use generative artificial intelligence for any and all purposes, provided, and I'll come back to this in a moment, provided that such use does not violate any other rules. So there is no per se ban on the use of AI in the Jessup. Now, we first arrived at this decision back in 2022. I discussed the matter with judges, students, and coaches. I also discussed AI with the heads of the other major international law moot court competitions, some of whom, as you know, have taken a very different approach to AI. Now, with the other major moot courts, we all agreed that we would review our respective decisions from year to year as the technology advanced, and we would also draw upon our own and each other's diverse experiences with our own approaches. And so, if nothing else, this generative AI has gotten the major moot court competitions and our leadership talking in ways that we never have before. In particular, I'll note and I'll thank that I did work closely with the leadership of the FDI Moot, and their solution is basically the same as ours. They've got some things you have to sign as well, but they have the same approach as we do. I believe our solution is the best one for now. The purpose of a moot court competition and of legal education more generally is to prepare students for the actual contemporary practice of law. And the fact is, whether our students are going to go into private practice, work for the government, become academics, work for a private company or an NGO, or even work as some kind of consultant, they are entering a world where AI already exists and where lawyers are already expected to be familiar with the strengths and weaknesses of artificial intelligence. In particular, during all these conversations we had, I heard from a number of our friends of Jessup who practice law at private firms that clients already expect their lawyers to use AI for first drafts or for basic legal research. And from the client's point of view, this is just a way of reducing costs, of reducing billable hours, and thereby reducing the cost of legal representation to the client. Now, a number of people, when they look at the Jessup approach, say, oh, you took this decision because it's hard to enforce a partial or total ban on AI. How would you detect it? I have to admit, this didn't even come into my mind, and it didn't come up that often in my discussions in preparing our approach. After all, we are lawyers. I mean, one thing about the Jessup competition, everybody here is trained in the law. So we can enforce anything if we put our minds to it. We can create presumptions of innocence or guilt. We can establish multi-factor, multi-pronged tests. We can impose an honor code like the Moot does. The ease or difficulty of enforcement is a question that only comes up after you make the decision to impose restrictions of any kind on the use of AI. And as I mentioned, we decided that the training and educational purpose of the Jessup demands that we permit our students to use the same tools they will be expected to use in practice. I remember 25 or 30 years ago when I was competing and when I was first getting involved in the Jessup, when Lexis and Westlaw first introduced the so-called natural language searches, which nowadays we just call searches. But once upon a time with Lexis and Westlaw, we would have to say, quote, international law, end quote, and genocide and United States within 20 words. It was complete Boolean searching. And then all of a sudden, Lexis and Westlaw introduced sort of what we now consider Google-style natural language searches. And then 20 years ago, of course, Google and the other major search engines adopted contextual searching. At the time, friends of Jessup of a certain generation complained that this would be the death of legal research because Lexis or Westlaw or Google was doing all the hard research work for the students. They also were concerned that it would increase plagiarism as students would simply copy and paste from LexisNexis, Westlaw, so on and so forth. These complaints we're hearing now about AI, in my opinion, are of the same character. All of these new technologies certainly put pressure on the legal profession and on legal practitioners to prove our worth to our employers, to our clients. But our solution as educators can certainly not be to pretend that these technologies don't exist and hope that somebody regulates them out of existence. We have to take a close look at how we teach law school so that we are training and educating young professionals who have the skills to survive and thrive in the legal profession as it exists, not as how we wish it existed. So our goal at the Jessup in legalizing AI is to help prepare our students to use AI responsibly in their professional careers. But that does not mean we can simply say legalize it and walk away. What ILSA has done and what we will continue to do is provide training, videos, and written examples of good practices so that students learn the pros and cons of using AI. In that way, Jessup will continue to be what it's always been, a skills capstone to your legal education, bridging the gap between the book learning you pick up in the rest of your legal career and the rest of your legal education and the practice of law you're about to enter. And as you've heard from our authors just now, we do intend to partner with scientists and scholars to continue to review the impact that AI and other tools have on the Jessup competition. Now, I was very impressed with the ingenuity of our teams worldwide in how they used AI this year. As the authors have noted, we did a survey of all the teams in the world, and since AI is not prohibited or penalized by the Jessup, we expected them to be honest. We saw a number of teams Well, I mean, by way of context, it's a common complaint that memorials graded is biased towards teams whose native language is English. We saw a number of teams try to overcome this by writing their memorials themselves, then running it through AI to get suggestions about how to make their English grammar and structure more fluid. We saw other teams use it as a brainstorming tool. What cases am I not thinking of? And that's clever. And that is going to be the way that we use it effectively in practice. Now, as I start to turn towards wrapping up here, I will remind our students that they are still obviously bound by their law school's code of conduct. Some law schools have banned the use of AI in the classroom and in extracurricular activities. And if that's the case, you have to obey your school rules. You can't call me and say, Professor Pyle, please tell my dean that you said it was okay. But there's nothing inherently unethical about the use of AI. As far as I know, no lawyer has been sanctioned or punished for using AI per se. We have a famous case here in the US where a lawyer submitted an AI generated brief that contained some made up cases, some hallucinated cases. But if you read the decision in that case, he was punished because he submitted a brief that contained made up cases, not because he used AI. If you do submit a brief to the Jessup or to a real court that contains fake citations, you're going to get punished. Whether those citations were invented by an AI or whether they were invented by a junior lawyer or by some author of a case or a law review article you read. It's the fact of the violation in the brief that is the ethical violation, not how you got there. And so it behooves us as lawyers not merely to do what the authors have done here and have AI create a brief and submit it sight unseen, but in fact to use our legal training, our legal skills, and all of those good things that we spend time in law school learning to check the work, whatever portion of the work we have assigned to an artificial intelligence tool, and to make sure that what we submit at the end of the day meets the ethical standard of our practice. And that takes me back to what I said at the beginning. Even though you are allowed to use AI, all the other Jessup rules are still in effect. The best example, the most common example, is plagiarism. If you submit a brief and it steals language from somebody else or from something somebody else wrote, then you are guilty of plagiarism and you will be punished under our rules. That's true whether you did it yourself or whether an AI did it and you just failed to fix it. And I will confess that we are using AI tools, among other things, to detect plagiarism now. And it's made us much more effective at it. We handed out a lot more plagiarism penalties last year than we have in previous years. I hope this sets the Jessup framework a bit, and that was sort of my purpose in my main remarks. I'm happy to answer questions, happy to see what everybody else has to say. In closing, I'll just point out that team registration opens on Friday, so everybody get ready to register your teams, and the 2026 Jessup problem will be released on September 15th. Thank you very much.
Good to know. So tune up to the new season of Jessup and get ready for the new compromise. I have one follow-up question, probably as a counter argument to your position, I guess the way you've presented it, I could see this argument as an educator, as a lecturer, and I want you to reflect on that. So we do know that the law firms now use, and I agree, law firms encourage use of AI, and clients expect that in terms, for the sake of saving the resources, and they would rather pay for efficiency than the billable hours done by humans if this can be replaced by AI. But when you are teaching the skills, I think there could be a different approach. And I'm taking an analogy from my years in school when studying math. I mean, we do have calculators. We do have tools to use all the formulas and apply them to any data and solving any problems. But we still, hopefully, I don't know what's going on now in the schools, but hopefully we still teach the multiplication table to the children and at least expect them to, be able to multiply numbers, to do some basic calculation in their mind as a skill. which they need to develop their critical thinking, right? Which they might not be using later on, but that is important in forming their understanding on the, the logic of the math. Couldn't this be applied in the same way, saying that well, they will be, the students will be using AI in their careers, but being able to do the legal research on your own is a critical skill which you need to learn first, so that you later understand on how to use that, how to evaluate what the AI brings to you. And without this stage, you're losing the critical skill that is necessary even in the age of, the routine use of AI. Do you see this analogy as workable? Does it make sense to you, or you don't see any problem with that? People starting doing research through the AI and writing things.
No, I adopt the analogy. I think I agree with the analogy 100%, but I think we disagree as to what the analog of the multiplication tables is in legal practice. So I don't think anybody on this call was probably attending an American law school prior to about 1999. So this may be lost on everybody, but when I was in law school, which was the advent of LexisNexis and the advent of the internet, we had to do something called shepherdizing. And Shepherds was the publisher of volumes and volumes of Times New Roman 6-point column after column after column, where they would cross-link every case. Anytime one American case cited another American case, they would indicate it, and they would have a little code that would say whether it was adopted, whether it was overturned, whether it was cited with approval, so on and so forth. And we had to memorize these codes, and we had to know how to flip through these giant books. I now have a skill that is completely useless in the modern world. At the time, it was considered foundational. Whether you were going to be a transactional lawyer or a litigator or a legal academic, shepherdizing was considered a core skill. And one of the complaints in the early days about the internet was that students were not going to learn how to shepherdize. How can they think like lawyers if they don't actually see these columns and columns showing how the cases relate to one another? And obviously nowadays we can do keyword searches. Cases are hyperlinked to one another. Meta tags make all kinds of cross-referencing and research across sources very, very handy. Shepherdizing is useless. And so the question is, what are those foundational skills? And what are the foundational skills that make us good lawyers? And the short answer is, I don't have the complete answer yet, but I don't think that asking students to artificially handicap their use of a tool that will be provided to them in the marketplace, by their employer or by their client or publicly available through Google, is a way to train lawyers who can function. I again, with your maths, I'm a maths person as well. Slide rules. I have engineer friends that are older than me that say the fact that math kids today, advanced math kids, don't know how to use slide rules and can't do logarithms, by hand, means that the world is over. Who's going to invent ball bearings now? Who's going to repair things? You can't be an engineer unless you can use a slide rule. The fact is, we've moved on, and I hope we never move past the days when we can all do multiplication in our head. Just like I hope we never reach the point as lawyers where critical thinking is no longer required because we have machines to do it. But it is our job as a profession and as legal educators, and that is at the end of the day what the Jessup is, an educational tool. It's our job to adjust to where the profession is going, adjust to where our clients are going, and adjust to where society is going.
Thank you. I come from the family of engineers, so I still remember logarithm ruler as a toy in my home. Yeah. I have another question that was asked by some of the participants that registered before, And as, I mean, this is obvious question of whether AI will replace humans. I will try to contextualize it for the moot courts. We already have the situation where computers routinely better than humans in some of the logical games. I think chess is the most famous example, but there are some other games where computers seems to be winning over the best the human race can produce. Do you think that we can end up in a situation in a couple of years where the bulk of the memorials will get 90 plus scores, 90, 95, and in this way make the memorial part of the competition, if not useless, but kind of non-indicative of the real skills that the people have? So, you're having 100 teams and 90 teams get 90 plus scores for the memory. The difference is really small. So that given the points for the difference of 1 point out of 100 becomes a kind of a lottery ticket. Do you think that this can happen? And if it does, what would be your reaction?
Sure. Can everybody hear me? Sergey's microphone was cutting in and out, and I'm worried it was me. Okay, good. So the answer is, I hope so. Honestly, everybody getting scores in the 90s, everybody submitting memorials that are top notch is the goal here. It's why we introduced the basic materials back in the early 2000s. It's why we negotiate every year with Hein Online and LexisNexis and Oxford and Westlaw. We want to level the playing field. We want to, I think the shoe is on the wrong foot if we say, if you ask me, do we really want everybody just having AI spit out their memorials? We do want 705 teams, 805 teams, 1,000 teams around the world, all sufficiently facile in the use of those tools. And we want to make the tools evenly available at schools, at the richest schools in the world and the poorest schools in the world, and so on and so forth. I hope that someday we face the challenge that the worst memorial in the world is getting a 91. And I will say, thanks to my colleague and our chair-elect, Andrew Holmes, we've already adjusted the scoring system to compensate for this. Many of you will notice that last year, we left the judge versus judge, high, medium, low comparison of memorials, where a memorial that was 1 point better than their opponent's memorial could receive 3 round points, which is a judge and a half, right? Now we compare the averages. So if we end up in a universe where the best memorial in the world gets a 99 and the worst memorial gets a 93, then that's going to impact how little, where that's going to make the memorials have less impact on the outcome of rounds. We're going to see a lot more memorials round points tied 1.5 to 1.5. And then a few outliers will be 2 to 1 or whatever, but it will come down to the orals. The short answer is, I hope we reach that point as a competition. Now, my caveat is, I hope we get there not because everybody is simply using AI and leaving it alone and turning it in, and the AI has gotten so good that nobody has to worry about it. I hope that we get there because the students very quickly adapt to this new tool. And I've now been around the Jessup competition long enough that I know they will, because they have adjusted to every other tool that's come over the transom.
As there are no questions coming, I will use my power as a moderator to ask you one more question. There's a competition that even before all of this AI era was having a different approach, where the actual problem, and usually these are the international humanitarian law competitions, where the actual problem is revealed when the teams are at the competition and they have a limited amount of time to react on that. And I guess the different skill is being evaluated and judged, right? So this is a very different skill set that you need to react quickly. Do you think that this could be the response to the AI-dominated memorial writing stage of the competition, or you think it's just something that is a different skill that is that should not be tested in the bigger competition or general competition like Jessup or other competitions?
I'm familiar with those kinds of competitions. In fact, I competed in one, in the late 1980s, so pre-all technology, sort of a crisis simulation competition. I know there are a couple of.
Yeah. Did you have electricity?
We had electricity, but it was all
Water?
Tesla. It was all DC. It was Tesla. But I love those. They're fantastic, and you're right. They test a different kind of skill. That being said, there's place for AI, and we will see an emergent role for AI, even in those kinds of situations, at the same time that we see an emergent role for AI in actual crisis situations. As people like Damian and Nicole get better and better at training large language models, and as other specialists in other fields get better at doing the same thing in medicine, in public health, in transportation, in supply chain management, we're going to see AI having a role in that. And so rather than having AI write your memorial, you're walking into a crisis situation and saying, all right, here's the situation, here are the main points, et cetera, et cetera. And just like in the Jessup, the students who adapt the most quickly and find effective ways to make the machine or to make the appropriate tool leverage what they've got up here and leverage all of their practice and all their training and everything else, those are the students that are going to succeed. And I think in our profession, probably at this point in every skilled profession, that's going to be true in the real world as well. If I may be permitted the conceit to say that Jessup is not always the real world.
Thank you, Michael. Let's move to the younger generation, the ones who are born into the era of internet, gadgets, and social media, something that we did not have at this age. So I'm turning to the Masha Stolbova, the coach, and Vlad, the participant of this year's Ukrainian team. We're proud of you guys. You made a history by making to the final and becoming the runner-up of the global Jessup competition. We would like to hear your side of a story, how you used AI in your preparations. And I know that this goes both to the written stage and oral stage, something that has not been covered before. And then we would like to hear how AI helps you or helped you, or you think should help other students to get better in developing their skills, researching the international law or specific judges' positions, and preparing to the oral rounds. So, Masha, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sergey, especially for thinking that I'm from the young generation, but I actually still remember connecting the cable from the phone to my laptop. So this is still the time that I can relate to. So I saw this huge development of the technology quite during my childhood and teenagers years. So first of all, thanks for having us at this panel. Just to give you a bit of overview, I will share the position of the coach and maybe like a bit of the person who holds the senior position on the legal market as the in-house lawyer. And Vlad will give the practical advice because he was our researcher. And I heard some of you mention that we will not need the researchers anymore. Trust me, if this is someone like Vlad, you definitely, you will be really willing even to pay for such a researcher as Vlad. So just coming to my observations, the first thing that I would want to say is that we kind of perceive moot courts as the educational activities, right? For someone, it is the part of curriculum. For someone, it is goes outside, but still we are here to learn something. The fact that, the first thing that I would like to do in this respect is to say that education should ideally train us for the professional world. And Michael pretty much shared everything I wanted to cover, so I will be really brief on that. It's true that on the market, AI is already in use. And so in addition to my position as the in-house lawyer, I have the academic background in business and innovations management. And I also have the practical experience of integrating the AI into contract lifecycle system management for quite a big pharmaceutical company. So I have two observations in this respect. The first one is just like it happens every time with any kind of innovation, we are now at the stage of kind of opposing to it, which is normal. And this happened every time and will happen in the future because we used to some style of doing our work. And now we have to think of creating some new value. And there is no way a reasonable person will like going out of the comfort zone in this way. And Michael gave an amazing example of the evolution of the research engines. So this is just, AI is just another example here. And as of now, honestly, I'm sorry for my voice, the AI tools for the lawyers are extremely overestimated. And to get an acceptable result, not just to later be banned from your bar association for the fake cases, it takes effort. And just to give an example, 15 years ago, there was no Google Translate and we used the printed vocabularies. But even today, after all the time of development, this technology doesn't work properly without a human. And so just like the lawyers cannot imagine working without vocabularies today, the same will happen in the future with AI. So having this in mind that, okay, opposition is counterproductive, I am the strong supporter of the proactive approach. We can't pretend that there is no elephant in the room, and pretending that AI is just something around the corner and not a part of our life is just, it will result in absolute tech illiteracy, and it can really harm by disclosure of sensitive personal data, fake cases, and so on. And just saying that, no, guys, you cannot use the AI either in the university or at the workplace, results that you have to have someone who will be kind of AI use watchdog. And nowadays we don't have the 100% solution to identify the AI, right? Of course, when this is a very basic level, you can easily spot this, but with the advanced level of usage, it becomes much harder. It's not like plagiarism. You can't filter that out that easy. So in turn, because of that, I'm for learning and teaching to use the AI. And when the lawyer knows pros and cons, he or she will likely not feed the AI with some sensitive data, but at least will anonymize that, or at least check the cases AI suggests. Funny, I was a person who was using AI as the search engine during one of the moot courts I did in 2023. It was the professional gaming industry moot court, and ChatGPT pretty much became public only then, so it was kind of something extremely innovative. And the moot court was based on the US law. I have zero knowledge of the US law, at least like at that time. Now it's better. So I was like, okay, ChatGPT, give me the cases which work with this description. And I got a number of the cases. One of them existed, but there was nothing of what I needed actually. And others even didn't exist in the, so I did the Google search after that. So now with this pro-learning approach, I'm taking you back to the moot courts. And as the coach, I would recommend setting the boundaries from the very beginning for your team. The thing why the coaches might be against using the AI are absolutely reasonable, because the coach doesn't feel comfortable using the AI and like kind of given instructions how to do this. So this is something the coaches should also learn. Good news, you can do this together with your team. Bad news, if you do not support using the AI or not allowing the team using the AI, you are putting yourself exactly in the position of being the watchdog and just all the time trying to find the hallucination research parts. So this is simply not effective. So I would say that you can together review the prompts, explain the pros and cons, help your team navigate that, and agree that everything should be checked. You have to have still the sources for everything. And with this being said, anyway, the AI majorly saves the written parts, and it's a minor value for the oral rounds because there everyone gets what they deserve because there is no AI while you interact with the judge. And regarding the written part, of course, non-native speaking teams or the teams that don't have access to high quality training will benefit from that. We tend to forget that there are the teams that have no stable internet connection, no databases connections, no mooting tradition, no coach. And so this is such a huge gap between the top teams, all the resources, and the teams who just want to do that, but just simply don't know how. And for these teams, I think they actually need it more than anyone else. So this will give them at least the entry-level preparation. And for those teams who have all the resources, this is more of training than additional skill, not just writing research and how it's traditionally perceived, but using the AI. And I think we discussed this with the panelists internally. The AI sometimes reduces the creativity of the arguments. You can give the AI the issue and say, okay, write me the argument on that using like this and this and this case. You will get quite an average output. But for example, if you have some creative argument and you send it to the AI just to hear the feedback, because it's just too creative and no one has done it before, so there is no similar logics in the prompts or something, like there is no anything similar, no one did that, the AI will drop say it's not the sufficient quality, and you can just lose this nice argument only because of no one has ever done that. I'm just simplifying how the AI works, obviously, but the logic is pretty much there. And in the end, yes, we will have a better level of memorials. Maybe even everyone will have by 100s. But fighting the AI in the memorials to me is like tilting at windmills or like something like that. So don't see much of that. To me, a bigger issue, honestly, is not using the AI, but the scale of Jessup. That the scale of Jessup, it simply doesn't allow to grade all memorials in the same way. So we have hundreds of judges with their own backgrounds, with their deadlines, many factors that can distract them from judging the memorials properly. I don't know if I have to tell that, but to the best of my knowledge, an average judge spends 20 to 30 minutes on the memorial. I think this is quite positive estimate. So to me, this is an ultimate issue because in the end, you can get for the same memorial from 70 to 90. And so the system that ILS introduced last year kind of mitigates this effect, but still it is there. And only on the top, AI kind of is just a small thing about that, but not as big as overall the grading of the memorials. And so using AI usage will require the judges to be more skillful, dive deeper into memorials, to really find out the best arguments, not just the good-looking memorials. And yep, just to remind, a memorial is just 30% of grading Jessup. And so when we go to the orals, you can completely forget of memorials. Yeah, if you are good in orals, your memorial can be like 0 and you can still prevail. This pretty much happened to us this year. Like we were not lucky to get some points, so we had to count on the orals. But of course, there the moot courts, like Telders, for example, they give 50% of weight to the memorials. And I think this should be really reduced because it's is just unfair. So, yep, I think that in the oral stage, the AI cannot help when you say before the courts. Vlad will tell how it possibly can help when you're preparing for the orals with the Q&A and everything. So to me, AI it's only the benefits, and it's just the necessity it's just the new skill the lawyers should learn and to be trained in. So I strongly support the way Ilse approaches that, and I think that it's just time for us to accept that this is the future and start learning how to use that properly.
Thank you, Masha. Before we go to Vlad, I would like to sort of pick up your point on the lack of objectivity in evaluating the memorials because they're evaluated by different people. So what if organizers of the moot court decided to train AI based on the bench memo to evaluate the memorials? In this way, you would probably lose a lot of creativity from the side of evaluators, but you would get the objectivity because the AI would probably look at all the memos in the same way, based on what the bench memo says these memorials should include. Would you be prepared to trade off like that, between the objectivity and human involvement in evaluating the memorials from the coach's perspective?
I would say that to me, the fact that the memorials are graded differently is not that much about objectivity, because every person who grades the memorial can probably give the reasoning why they put this score. So for them, this is quite an objective score. To me, it's more about different standards everyone has. And this is kind of the consequence of having so many legal systems and so many different backgrounds coming together. And this is kind of has pros and cons. I would say I honestly will be interested in having 1 out of, let's say, 5 judges, the AI judge. But as the person who never matches the bench memo arguments and being considered relatively creative for the moot courts, I would say that yes, so we will lose for creativity, but we will get the score on like the depth of research and some things. But yeah, I wouldn't 100% change the human here, but maybe partially. Yeah, so Michael doesn't agree with me.
Oh no, I was just going to say, Damian and Nicola, let's talk offline after this. I have a not very surprising idea. That being said, we won't be introducing AI judges this year, but as we have discussed offline, the Jessup is aware of this external issue regarding different judges' standards, and we've got a number of process improvements now that the Jessup has scaled up. I mean, remember, this growth has happened very recently, and so we're over 700 teams now. We have over 1,200 judges around the world, and we recognize that there needs to be a baseline, or at the very least, our judges need to be comparing apples and apples rather than all these other things. So I won't go too much into inside baseball, but Masha raises a great point that exists whether or not, you know, we turn off AI tomorrow and we never hear of it again. And we're working on it, and I'm open to suggestions.
Thank you, Michael. I want to do the final follow-up question to Masha, just throwing again on you the points that you've made that as of now, AI doesn't help much during the oral stage of the competition. And also the previous points where it was said that, and you also, repeated what I guess Michael said, that AI helps teams with less resources to get access to the information that they need. I still remember the times when at Jessup you could argue in your native language, provided that you can do you have the interpreter interpreting it for the judges. What if, in the moot courts, we introduce the AI-powered interpretation in the real time that will translate the argument in the native language to English or French or whatever other language is the language of the competition? Speaker bias, right? And it's even more important at the oral stage that at the written stage. What would you think about this? Would this be something that non-native speaker teams would embrace, or this is again not given the the sort of the human interaction that we value that much in the moot courts?
To me, the core point here is not about the human interference and so on, but about the skill set that Jessup allows to develop and pretty much other moot courts. I think that as long as English remains such a valuable language in the communication, interstate communication, interperson communication, especially among the scientists and the professionals, I believe that we can look at the language knowledge and the level of the knowledge as the part of the skill here. So I would say that it's better to keep it as it is. And for instance, I don't know the international terms in Ukrainian, and I always struggled with that in the university, like saying, custom international law in Ukrainian. It was always a question to me, but I know this in English, and I can easily access the international market and talk to the peers from around the globe. So I would say that let's keep it at least so far. But I also heard some ideas about kind of AI judges and so on, at least for the trainings. To put it briefly, I am up to anything that can help the teams that come from especially underprivileged background to prepare for the competition or advance their skills, because you can use the AI judge preparing for the national court as well. I mean, I judged the global rounds in 2021, and I saw the team, I think, from Afghanistan, and they were moving between the different cafes because of the internet problems. I again say that we are in a privileged condition to have constant internet, have the resources and everything. And like my team had to research having no electricity because of the missile attacks and electricity shortages. Many teams don't face that, and I never want anyone to have this experience. But as we should accept as many opportunities, especially if they are available universally, if they are cheap, affordable. So the more we can have of this experience, I think is the better in the global interest.
Thank you, Masha. I've noticed that we have Ganna Yudkivska joining us, and we're very privileged to have you here. And I would like to hear your ideas on the use of AI in the moot courts. You've judged the final round of Jessup, so you know how it worked out in the final round, and you've been a judge at the European Court of Human Rights, so you've judged the real world cases. So I guess this is also the experience that would be valuable to us in your reflections. So if you would like to share your ideas, please take the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sergey. Hello, everyone. I am very happy to see some very familiar faces, and I have really very sweet and warm memories from last year competition. And coming to the point and the questions we discussed, I'm sorry, today I'm traveling. I missed the first part of the discussion, and unfortunately I will have to leave very soon to catch my train. But what I wanted to share with you, well, just a year ago, exactly when I was judging the Jessup final, I asked, it was Jeff, Brooks, and Dagmar, yes, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, the authors of the case. My first question was whether they allowed students to use AI. And when I asked, they started to laugh. They said, oh, yes, of course we do. You know, no problem with it at all, because we tried to put our case to ask questions, and we were laughing because what the AI produced that time was just ridiculous. AI had access only to some outdated materials, outdated cases, and scientific articles, so it was complete bullshit what they produced. They were really laughing. And today, just 1 year passed, yeah, we witness how the situation changed dramatically. And we do not yet realize, I think, how quickly AI progressed. Just recently at the conference, I was presented a research of the use of AI in the courts. And according to this research, a year ago, a judge could ask ChatGPT, well, please help me to decide on bail for, well, let's say 16-year-old juvenile, no prior records, good credentials, no flight tickets, etc. And AI that time, 1 year ago, said something like, as an AI model, I cannot make a final decision on whether bail should be granted, as this is a matter of judicial discretion. Yeah, so it rejected. But today, this answer no longer exists. Just after 1 year, no longer exists. Today, AI clearly says yes or no, it should be granted or not. So, and provides explanation, of course, yeah. And I assume some judges might use it. So, and there is a fascinating situation. We are now cautiously debating whether AI should be allowed in moot court competitions, but at the same time, real judges in real courtrooms are using it to make decisions that affect people's lives, liberty, property. Nevertheless, I have to admit that I'm a big AI enthusiast, and I believe it's a wonderful tool that can be a perfect assistant when used responsibly. For a judge or a member of quasi-judicial body as I am now, it's like having a quick, meticulous law clerk, and I confess I use it extensively. But in many countries, I think Michael just mentioned it, for certain types of cases, AI already is a judge. Real judge that just doesn't need coffee breaks, yeah. Consider road traffic cases. Yes, they all are decided today in all countries by AI tools. But in many countries like China, like Brazil, civil cases and other, well, actually a huge range of cases are today decided by AI. And this trend will only grow. And one day, perhaps, I hope not soon, but perhaps one day we will have an international AI court. And of course, law students should use AI and learn how to use it properly. I personally don't see any problem with them using AI to draft a memorial. I'm sure you already discussed it, that the memorial is the beginning of the moot court journey. It's not a destination. Students will stand before judges who have read the AI prepared memorial, yeah? And they must defend every single argument, every citation, every legal theory contained within it. They can't simply say, well, this part of memorial was prepared by ChatGPT when a judge asks probing questions about the interpretation of precedent. And this is where real learning happens. Students must adopt and truly understand every aspect of their submissions. They need to know not just what cases they have cited, but why those cases support their position, how they distinguish adverse authority, and where their argument might be vulnerable. Yeah? When a judge challenges their reasoning or poses a hypothetical that tests legal theory's boundaries, students might think on their feet with deep, authentic understanding. Yeah? And I believe that the AI assistance might actually elevate the competition. If AI can handle the mechanical aspects, so to say, of legal research, some basic argument structure, students thus are freed to focus on more sophisticated skills that truly matter in legal practice, like synthesizing complex legal principles, developing innovative arguments that push existing laws boundaries, advocating persuasively under very high pressure, yes, we all know. The best lawyers are not those who can research and write. The best lawyers are those who can take complex legal materials, truly understand them, and then defend and develop those ideas in unpredictable situations. And Moot courts, even with AI-assisted memorials, still tests and develops exactly those crucial skills. And moreover, AI so far, yeah, of course it develops, produces, but so today it produces competent but conventional legal arguments. The real test of a moot court participant is whether they can go beyond what AI generates and propose some genuinely innovative legal solution. Yeah, can they identify novel applications of existing precedent? Can they create new arguments? Can they anticipate counter arguments and develop sophisticated reasons? Yeah. So these are fundamentally human skills requiring creativity, legal intuition, and deep analytical thinking, which I doubt today AI already have. Of course, AI changed the legal education, and yes, I assume there is a temptation for law students to ask ChatGPT to do their homework, but the only way to develop good legal instincts for logical arguments as is by reading and reading again, researching yourself over and over, and we all know this. So yes, we worry that wider AI adoption means young lawyers may not gain analytical skills traditionally acquired through extensive reading of case law, but moot court competitions are for good law students who will become good lawyers. And even if a memorial is fully AI written and error-free, we know today that most AI programs are hallucinating, referring to the cases that never existed, and this became now a widespread reason for lawyers' disbarment worldwide, particularly in America, because lawyers submit AI-generated documents containing references to non-existent cases. But okay, even if the memorial does not have these errors, is perfect, it will not help at the end of the day if student is not a competent one. So I encourage students to use AI. It becomes inevitable, but to use it responsible. And just want to share with you one of the stories I love a lot. It's about Justice Oliver Holmes, whom President Franklin Roosevelt found one day reading Plato at the age of 92. Oliver Holmes was 92. Why do you read Plato, Mr. Justice? Roosevelt asked, and elderly Justice replied, I want to improve my mind, Mr. President. And what gives me hope that AI would never be able to fully replace all lawyers, even if we imagine our AI systems processing plateau to improve their arguments, they would still miss that, I believe, what only humans can grasp, the wisdom that emerges not from consuming information. AI definitely does it better than us, but from the dialogue between the text you read and your consciousness. And if I still have a couple of minutes, Sergey, I just want to share with you that recently, again, as a big AI fan, I started to think about my ideal AI tool. And I looked what was available, and I discussed with some colleagues, and together we found what we miss, and we found people who started to work with us to develop this. So I found all AI programs for lawyers existing so far with some limited access to fragmented databases, and thus they can provide, unfortunately, incomplete research. So we sat together with some lawyers, and we thought what we need as international lawyers and constitutional lawyers and other capacities. And personally, I want to have the ability to search simultaneously through every major court system on the planet, yeah? From the International Court of Justice to national Supreme Courts worldwide, from specialized tribunals to constitutional courts, all in a single intelligent search that understands not just keywords, but the deeper legal concepts and relationship within concrete case, yeah? So my point is no wheel should be reinvented. Yes, all courts deal with more or less similar issues. And I want to see how different courts in different parts of the planet assessed similar factual circumstances and gave a meaning to the same legal concepts. And what traditionally takes legal researchers, attorneys, students, etc., weeks and even months of painstaking work through fragmented databases now should happen within minutes within an AI tool, not just finding cases, but understanding their relevance, ranking them by relevance and strategic importance, and revealing hidden connections across jurisdictions that human researchers might not discover. And this is not just about efficiency, it's about democratizing access to global legal wisdom. We believe that our AI, we hope it will be ready soon, will serve as a most brilliant legal researcher you could ever had. One not only with a perfect memory of every court decision ever made, but also the ability to process multiple languages simultaneously, and the intelligence to identify patterns and strategic insights that emerge only when you can see the entire legal landscape at once. And this is the assistance I dream about. My colleagues are now working to have it realized, and maybe next year Jessup students will use it as well. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Anna. That was a very exciting the prospect that you've shared, and sounds like a great business idea for AI enthusiasts. I wanted to ask you, if I may, as a fellow colleague judge, based on also my experience, have you managed to detect the AI generated text in your judging or in reviewing other people's writings? Does it matter to you that the text that you're reading is AI generated or not? And would you like it to be marked as such, or again, you don't see this as relevant, both in students' memorials and then outside of the mooting context?
That's an excellent question, Sergey. Yes, I do see it because, well, I assume, of course, I missed a lot of AI-generated text. I believe they're written by humans, but they're not. But sometimes I see this very standard language, very standard wording used by AI. Sometimes it irritates, I can confess, sometimes. But sometimes I find, okay, it's so wonderfully prepared paper, for example, yeah. I see that the author of the paper invested a lot of knowledge, energies, etc. And maybe if he used AI to prepare a part of it, especially we also should consider that majority of those texts are written by non-native speakers. Of course, for them it's much easier to ask ChatGPT, okay, I have this and this thoughts, please put it in wonderful, brilliant English or French, so that it sounds, perfect and impeccable. So I cannot blame them for that. If again, I see a lot of energy, a lot of creativity to put in the text. So language maybe is not so important when you really face very creatively, written document and you understand that there is a lot of thoughts behind it, not just with the standard AI language. Sometimes the standard AI language goes together with a standard legal thinking, and that's the point when it starts to irritate you.
Thank you. I wanted to ask again one more question on this hallucination part, and that's how the researchers refer to this feature of AI where it starts at some point inventing cases or facts. Is this, I mean, as a judge or someone who evaluates a text, does it require new skill for you? Again, I would assume that, before AI, people would not invent cases. I don't know, maybe this did happen before, but definitely this was not a thing, right? This would not happen routinely. But now again, it seems to me that when we are reading a submission, we should be trained to detecting those hallucinations, or should we not? Should we just apply the same set of skills that we would have applied 10 years ago and look at this with the same eye? Or again, do we need a separate skill or a separate AI trained tool to detect those hallucinations?
Well, I really don't think that any experienced judge would miss this hallucinated case, wrong case that did not exist. It immediately catches your eye. So, I mean, I had it a lot when I work. I mean, I get papers, for example, with reference to the European Court of Human Rights major case law, which of course I know quite well, yeah. And when I see name of the case I never heard about, I thought, should be something new. Oh, no, I see here it was adopted 2008. Of course, I cannot know all the judgments delivered by the court. We have 20,000 per year. But of course, when you refer to the case, it should be a key leading case. And maybe I missed something. So I go to HUDOC and I check, and I'm sure that everyone who in his or her area has the same skills. And therefore, those judges today who received submissions from lawyers with reference to non-existing cases, they immediately submit requests for disbarment of this lawyer, because I completely agree with this. Irresponsible lawyers are not lawyers, and they should not practice. So briefly replying to your question, no, I don't think it's a additional new skill for any judge who assess. I believe more or less we have intuition when we see the name of the case which does not ring any bell.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your wonderful thoughts. I'm sure that's very helpful to the judges who might be listening to this panel, and also for those who are using AI without checking the cases. Again, as you said, the experienced judge will always get suspicious when they get a case they've never heard of before. So future moot court participants, be careful about the case law. With that, I would like to give the floor to our final speaker, Vlad, the actual student who's been doing the moot courts recently, and who, according to Masha, is the AI mind behind the success of Ukrainian team. And we would like to hear your experience, maybe your fellow friends and colleagues and opponents from around the world will find this useful as well and compare this to their own experience. Vlad, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I will try to touch upon several issues regarding our preparation and the help of AI instruments, because it's not only ChatGPT but also some others. For instance, we discovered Bing AI, which really good also, but it's free, and some other tools which really helps you to find some information, because AI does not only end on ChatGPT. But what I wanted to cover, it's every step of our preparation, starting from the meeting the case, because for instance, last year until there's our case was released with 2 weeks of it was delayed for 2 weeks, and essentially you have much less time for reading it, analyzing, making a timetable, and so on and so on. So you need to cut it down into small pieces to identify core legal issues behind this factual constellations, I don't know. And it is like the first step when you can use AI with Moot courts, I guess, because you just can put the case like wholly into the chat and just to ask him some general questions you have after one or two readings of the case, and it really helps you just to get familiarized with it, just to know, especially if you didn't do any prior research as we did it last year when Jessup issues were released. And yeah, with the facts case, it's really helpful. It just gives you clarity before you even open some kind of hard law or case law. Then when it comes to research, I guess it's the main step, as we discussed, when you can use an AI, but it should be used wisely, not only in terms of, everyone touched upon this, in terms of trustworthiness of case law or some other sources which AI proposed you to use, but also have you write your scripts, because you can just take some kind of facts and then to ask ChatGPT, especially with deep research function in ChatGPT Premium, and ask something very specific, because it would analyze it like very, very deeply with bunch of different links and answers, but not only just to ask something general, because it would be a general answer and like everyone would know it and do the same, but you need to really carefully ask every question from ChatGPT, and the more precise you are, the more good answer it would give you. For instance, this year's case, it was really, really, it covered really wide range of issues, especially on immunities, because functional immunities of state officials, it's really broad topic. And for instance, when you have a bunch of articles or not books, because with the analyzing of books, AI is not that helpful, but with articles, especially long articles, and if you know that those articles are essentially about like the same things, because they cover relatively the same information about general stuff about immunities, and you need to point out some kind of really narrow issue, narrow topic, you can ask him to read it out, and then just to grab some information you need to derive from it. And when it comes to drafting of memorials, especially for people who are not familiar with Iraq system or just not used to it, it really helps you to get used to it, because you just ask AI to draft your thoughts into the system, and it's just simplify simplifies the way you are, especially for beginners, you are going into this drafting world. I don't know. And I guess Masha would agree with me that simplicity is key in moot courts, both in terms of drafting memorials and oral pleadings. And AI sometimes, when you ask him, for instance, to rewrite some sentences or paragraphs, as you can, I don't know, to interpret it for a child or for some kind of person who is not familiar with international law or with law in general, it really helps you to break these really complex issues down, because sometimes some very smart teams are struggling with simplifying things because they were researching so long, so deep, and then you just need to return to basics. And if you are asked to build some argument based on just ordinary sources of law, treaties, customary international law, and as is with this year's case, with general principles of law, and you just write down your argument, which is based on really hard, complex, hard law, conventions, case law of ICJ, tribunals, ACHR, or something more. It really helps you to simplify this. Then I guess it was also mentioned with the grammar transitions and some kind of if you're not a native speaker, it really helps you to improve the pace of your arguments, because for me it's really complicated to think in English faster than in Ukrainian. So I can just put my things in Ukrainian or in very simple, not correct grammar English into the system of ChatGPT, and then I will ask him or it or she or her, I don't know what the gender of AI, to render me a really nice argument from my thoughts, because as Hannah mentioned, it gives you a room for creativity and strategy, and to make something on top of the some basics books or on the thinking of the GPT. And as Masha mentioned, that we cannot. Some people overestimate AI, but I would say that some people also underestimate it, because it really gives you time and it helps you with time management, because you can focus on some things which are more important, not only reading and researching and rereading the same case law, but generate new ideas regarding the maybe some kind of really old issues as immunities. And lastly, with advocacy and with the oral rounds and speaking, the same, it's the simplifying of your arguments, but also but I know that many teams are writing down their rebuttals and rebuttals in advance, just to be prepared for some kind of alleged potential questions. If you are running out of potential questions, the judges might ask you just can ask ChatGPT. It could be the same questions, but sometimes you never know, it could be something different, especially if you are asking or her again and again. So yeah, I would say that this is all for me. And so basically I will end with saying that we need to focus not on the like everyone knows that we need to double check and rely on the trusted sources to create legal arguments, but also we do not need to forget that AI really gives us this opportunity to take the time for our creativity and our like human brain cannot be compared to AI. So this is all. This is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vlad. I have a couple of quick follow-up questions. First, in your experience, has the AI replaced the need to go to the physical libraries, or you still need those facilities for
I
the
guess
Moot
the
courts?
need to go to libraries can be replaced by purchasing the law libraries in Oxford, Cambridge, which can be done by really rich universities, but not because we purchased Peace Palace Library. It's not AI, but still. But ChatGPT can propose you some kind of sources, but you still need to go, I don't know, to library or to digital library of this kind.
Have you detected any AI generated text in the memorials of your opponents, and what would this tell you? Was it even like a factor, or you didn't really look into that?
I don't really remember that, but maybe some memorials were looking great in terms of grammar, style, and formatting, but with the content, it was not that good. So maybe it is a catch which may show the usage of AI involvement. But generally, no, I haven't. Maybe I didn't focus on that.
Okay, thank you. I know Masha wanted to add a couple of words to that. So yeah,
I just wanted
please.
to add a practical recommendation for practicing the oral rounds. Vlad correctly mentioned that the more questions you put to ChatGPT, like the prompt really matters, you will get diverse results. As just suggestion, you can think of like giving the ChatGPT or like any other LLM, give the kind of background of the judge and like create your virtual panel saying, you are the panel of 3 judges. One comes from Singapore, has 10 years of background in construction. Another one is the dean of the UK international law program. And another one is the young lawyer who recently did Jessup, successfully did Jessup. Can you please give the questions from this panel? So how it will just kind of simulate the interaction with this panel. It can also work out, and you can just diversify the backgrounds of the people and so on. So it can just to give you an advanced idea on how to give the prompts, because yeah, the better prompts you get, the better results, the outputs you get in return.
That's actually quite interesting. I'm wondering how, what kind of, if I put description of myself, what would the questions be, and
You
how
can
can
try
I fool
and tell
AI
us.
and asking the questions like a young recent Jessup graduate. Thank you very much. I think that was a very practical advice, and I think this is very useful. I would pick this up as a tool in my future coaching career and advising my students as well. And I think that's great that we're sharing those ideas with everyone. And to sum up, I think that we all agree that AI is here to stay. It's already widely used in the legal profession. It's definitely now a part of the preparation to the moot court competition. It should be used wisely, and you should always double check on the results and outcomes that you get from the AI, because the ultimate responsibility lies with the team and the coach. But don't lose out by not using AI, as it seems that you can save a lot of time and effort, at least on the research stage, but also you can use it in preparing for the oral rounds, in simulating some of the questions that you might get from the bench, and in this way, thinking outside of the box. If the colleagues would like to give your final assessments of this discussion, anyone, please do. Michael, do you have any new ideas based on the discussion, or maybe someone else? We hope that we've inspired you to give us some new perks in the moot court competition next year.
This is all marvelous. I appreciate the perspectives. There's a very good question in the chat window. I don't have an answer to it. Damian is doing a very good job of sort of going to the nuts and bolts of it. But do be aware that ChatGPT and other public AI model or AI platforms are learning from the questions that are asked of them. There's a reason I sit in August and September and throw garbage questions at ChatGPT, dimly related to the Jessup problem, to completely throw it off. In fact, while we've been talking, I've been asking ChatGPT to give me the dumbest judge questions it could imagine for the Jessup. But it's evolving, and conversations like this are very, very important. And everybody in the audience, please keep your comments, concerns, observations, keep them coming. This is how ILSA learns, and this is how we keep the rules moving.
Thank you. Masha, you've raised a hand. Did you want to do the final remarks?
Yeah, maybe there we will kind of one more moment of inspiration. You asked the question if there was kind of, from Vlad, if there was any kind of surprisingly good memorial in Jessup. No, there was kind of like Vlad told. But in Telders, we saw one. I'm judging quite a lot of different moot courts in Jessup in particular. But there was one memorial when I was like, wow. So it was obvious that they used the AI tool. It turned out to be the team from one of the Eastern European countries, so obviously not native speakers. But there was so much thought behind all the arguments. You could definitely say that there was not just saying, hey, ChatGPT, give me the arguments. No, it was a really amazing memorial, and they used not the typical language the AI gives to you when you ask. So it was very nice prompts. And we met this team in the orals and ultimately in the finals. And you could see how all these thoughts came from, where they came from. So that was an amazing work. And I really think that, yeah, it was the first time ever I told something like, wow, looking at the memorial. So yeah, this is the way to go, I think, for all of us, and to strive for that, to use the AI in this way.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very useful. It seems to me now that the real sources of law are state practice, opinion juries, and a good prompt. That's where we're moving to. So thank you very much, everyone, for this discussion. I've learned a lot, and hopefully those who are going to listen to that will also take some useful insights for themselves. Thank you, and goodbye, everyone.